Good morning. Today is Sunday, November 5th, 2023, and this is the Bitcoin weekly price forecast. So looking at where Bitcoin went in the past week and where it could potentially go in the future. So at this point, we have started a new month. October is over at this point, and it ended up being the second best month of the year. So October went for 28%. Increase of about $7,600 over the course of the month. So that's pretty good. That's very good. The best month of the year was January at 39%, and then March had a 23% increase. So October lived up to its name, Uptober, as it's referred to in crypto. So yeah, absolutely had a great month. Ended up crushing this range that we had been in for quite some time. I think a lot of hype around ETF approvals and again, just general movement into the bull market has kind of fueled that growth. I say it a lot. Every day that we pass on, we get closer and closer to the bull market. I think at this point we're about 180-ish days away from the Bitcoin halving. So I mean that's a huge thing that's going to be happening in roughly April or May of next year. So again, every day that we pass, we get a little bit closer. So it's only a matter of time. Kind of looking at where we're at right now, this is November. Again, we're only on the 5th day of the month. Haven't really gone anywhere at this point. So, I mean, just kind of sitting in a range right here after this major move. Things kind of tend to have to cool off after that. So again, we'll kind of look down at like what's going on in the weekly chart. So again, we had this we've kind of broken a channel, right? So, I mean, you had like this channel that we've been slowly moving up in throughout the year. And it kind of pierced that. We'll put the drawings on a bit, but you had these several weeks of, you started that upwards movement, and then there was 2 weeks of major rockets, to where you moved heavily to the upside. And now we're just kind of sitting in this range right here, before any type of potential movement, some type of consolidation that you want to see. So that's fine. Again, after a major move like this, there will tend to be somewhat of a cool off period because we're not fully in that bull market just yet. We're still somewhat in the early stages, and I don't think that we'll start seeing like this continuous movement. Again, kind of like, this here until probably sometime next year, again, after the halving. Last time the halving happened in 2020, that was somewhere around, it was right around the time that the pandemic started. So it was like April or May it might have been June, actually. I can't remember. But anyway, you had the halving, and then you had several weeks to months, actually. So that was like September. So you ended up having like that major run up. So we're not quite there yet. Looking at the daily chart, we'll kind of see that we pretty much did a range at this point, and we'll put on the drawings. Again, my drawings really haven't changed too much. I will touch on one thing. At this point, we have broken like this long-term downtrend line. So if we draw a downtrend line from here, and we touch this point and we touch this point, and we've touched these different points, you can see that we have pierced that. So I mean, that happened in October with this major move. It could no longer contain it at that point, so we kind of moved to the upside. And as you can also see, that pretty much coincides with the parabola that we've had, kind of moving this way. So I mean, at this point, we are at the phase of the parabola where it starts to get faster, and it keeps on going up. So yeah, we'll see. I think that this could be a one where we end up going very much so to the upside. So we still have a lot of room to grow. We did a couple things. So we broke that long-term downtrend line. We broke the long-term support and resistance. So like those are two major areas that needed to be pierced before you could have any type of significant move to the upside. And we did both of that. So as I talked about last week, we ended up creating a lot of different demand zones on the way up. So you had this daily demand and, the one all the way down at 20,000. There are people, all in this range right here, people are waiting like, oh yeah, what's going to happen if it drops down to 20,000? And quite honestly, bears had about 6 months to drop it past this point, and they could not even get a daily close below 25,000. So to me, it was always kind of shaky that we could get to 20K. It was always a possibility, but at this point, it's almost impossible, I would say. Anything is possible, but it's not probable. So let's take a look here. I will draw a channel, an ascending channel at this point. So you have this, and it moved up here, and we thoroughly broke that. As a matter of fact, if we put this on the weekly chart, I should be able to draw something a little bit better. Let's just go all the way from like the beginning of the year, right? So we had this uptrend line, and then we can probably pull that up to here. So technically, you could say that we're still somewhat in this channel. You can make that green because it's very much so an uptrend. Call that an uptrend, and we can probably move that down a little bit to capture all that. So we had this movement up, down, up, down, up, down, and then finally this move up. So we're at the top of the channel right here now. So again, if we break above this, that's just really the last thing that you have. Because again, we broke above the long-term support and resistance. We broke the downtrend. We have created the demand zones. We're still inside the parabola. And now it makes sense why you've seen somewhat of a pause right here. And you could see a little bit more downside movement, which is fine. I think that's healthy. Before coming back up and piercing this uptrend line. So at this point, that channel is still intact. What you want to see is a break of this channel before you actually, get a confirmation that we're going to be running. I've talked about it before. We have a couple different key areas that we'll need to break before getting real movement to the upside. So you have to break this. Well, before you get to all-time highs, at least there'll be a couple stops on the train ride before you get there. So you have this one right here, which kind of coincides with the top of that channel there. You have this supply. You have this supply, which it's small. And matter of fact, that's not a huge one, but I think you will see somewhat of a stop here. That is the latest swing high before you actually went to the downside. So yeah, I do believe that you'll see some stops here. A little bit of a pause, and then finally nothing really in here. You could kind of say 50,000, but I don't think so. Well, actually, matter of fact, yes, you will. This is 50,000 right here. You'll probably see somewhat of a pause at 50,000 because it is such a round number. But again, that's not too far from the top side of this. So the top side of this range right here is about 48,000. So you'll probably see something. Yeah, this is 52. This is 50,000. We'll probably go down to the daily chart. We might be able to see it with a little bit more clarity. But the final stop that you'll have is this all-time high. And I don't know if we'll just blow right through it. It just kind of depends on what the market conditions are looking like at that time. So you could see something right here to where you have somewhat of a zone that pushes price down. So you could do one of these and come back down. And let's go down to the daily like I talked about. Moving over to where these zones actually take off, we can kind of refine them a little bit. So you'll probably see a pause somewhere around 45 to 47,000. You can go down to the 4-hour too and make it even more clear, but I don't think that's necessary. You could see one at 55,000. This is roughly 50,000 right here. Yeah, no, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in a sense, but I think these are some of like the major key points that you could see it bounce off of at that point. And then you'll probably see another one at about 63,000 to 66,000. So something to look forward to. But in the immediate future, I think what you could end up seeing is if we say that this long-term support it was long-term resistance. So we saw resistance here. You saw resistance here. It was support at a certain point. Price was being supported right here, but then it fell to the downside. And then prior to that, it was support here, and support here. So at this point, we're above it. The expectation is that you will have this resistance turn to support. So it's been resistance for the past, really since about 2021, I believe. But this major area, which is one of the last major areas that we have, I did not want to do that, could turn into a major area of support. And like I said, we are at the top of this channel right now. So what I'm expecting is that you will see, I mean, as you can see, like we kind of did this ranging action. What I'm expecting is that you have a drop back down to roughly about 32,000 before gaining enough momentum for it to go to the upside. And as you can see, that pretty much coincides with this yellow line, which is your parabola. It coincides with the support and resistance. So I think this is a key level. And then it'll end up filling up some of this imbalance that you have right here. So there was a major gap here that occurred on 10/23. So that was that Monday, shot straight up from roughly 30,000 all the way up to 35. So that's a huge movement in one day. So there's probably a lot of orders sitting right around here, right around this area. So there's some imbalance that you can clean up. And seeing as how we're at the top of this channel right now, that makes a lot of sense to where you can see it come back down. So at this point, like I said, it didn't really do a ton this week. It's just been a consolidation after this major move that we had roughly 2 weeks ago. So my prediction at this point is that I don't think that we're just going to blow right up to 30K. That is a possibility that we could just, see that continued movement. But I think the healthiest option would be for us to come back down to about 31K, and then go back up. I don't see us going back down to the mid 20s or, 24, 25, 26. Absolutely not 20. And this isn't even the next daily demand anymore. It's just straight up daily demand. We're not going to get down here again. I think that ship has sailed. If you got in, down here when it came, well, actually it never came back down there. So you would have had to get that prior to March. Yeah, I think like it's safe to say we're probably not going to go back down to 30K again. And that's fine. That we had 6 months to kind of accumulate in that range. So, I mean, seeing this move to the upside at this point is not surprising by any means. I think that's about it. In terms of major news that came out this week, the trial for Sam Bankman-Fried, I mean, the jury ended up convicting him as guilty, which, I mean, rightfully so. He cost investors billions of dollars, on the scale of Bernie Madoff type stuff. So between FTX and Terra Luna, I mean, this is one of the major scandals in crypto that really kind of brought a lack of credibility to the space, which we really don't need that. So, I mean, that is expected news, I would say. As you can see, that didn't really move the price too much for anything. So I think we may end up seeing somewhat of because let me see, this is Friday. The day ended on, where did Friday end? Let's just say like Friday at roughly this time, Control H, or Alt H, I should say. You may see somewhat of a CME gap, a Chicago Mercantile Exchange gap. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, matter of fact, it was this Friday. Yeah, so not a huge gap. So we did see a little bit of movement on Saturday to the upside, but that's nothing to pull back and close that little gap. So that's fine. The only other thing that we might look at is, before getting off of here, is let's just go ahead and hide these drawings. Hide the drawings and just look purely at the moving average. So this is a moving average ribbon. So it takes a whole bunch of different moving averages and kind of posts them. So you have the 20 moving average, 25, 30, all the way up to 55. To kind of break that, we're well above it on the monthly time frame and have been for quite some time. So you see it kind of came back down here. If we move that down to the weekly time frame, you see there was a whole bunch of consolidation. So this band is very tight, which ends up creating a somewhat of support. So you see we got above it, came ever so slightly below it, and then we rocketed it off to the upside on a weekly basis. And we can see the moving average is now kind of curving back to the upside. And now in the daily chart, we are well above all of those moving averages. So you have this ribbon here that, consolidated for, got very tight here. And when you see that, the next move is an expansion, whether that be to the upside or to the downside. In this case, it was to the upside. So we saw that daily expansion. And it kind of gives more credence that we could fall back into the moving average before going back up to the upside. So like I said, about 31, 32, that's, kind of mid-range of the moving averages here, especially on the daily chart. And I think which one is this? I can't remember. Probably, somewhere in the 30 to 50, since this is trending pretty hard. 4 hour, it's caught up to the moving averages. So yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. Like I said, my prediction at this point is that we end up coming back down into this range somewhere in here, 32 to 31. We're at the top of this channel, could come back down, go back up, or I mean, very much so we could absolutely just blow through. But again, you have this area of resistance right here at 38. So once you hit 38, I do think we'll come back down. So in my mind, it would be more advantageous for the movement to be able to come back down. But again, we'll see. This is only prediction, so that's pretty much it. Again, this has been Chris Talks Crypto. Check me out on christalkscrypto.com for any type of crypto resources, and I will see y'all on the moon. Take care.